The wind over Thermos 9 carried a metallic taste, a mix of ozone and dust that clung to every breath. Beneath the scarlet sky, laborers dug through volcanic soil while Karai officers lounged behind energy shields, their armor gleaming like molten glass. Captain Elias Ward wiped grime from his face and glanced at the excavation pit. The rhythmic clang of tools paused when a dull thud echoed from below. A worker had struck metal, something ancient. Ward felt the tremor in his boots and looked up as the overseer barked a command. "Careful, humans! Bring it out whole!" The alien snarled. His voice, filtered through a translator helm, vibrated with disdain. The object rose from the earth under the glare of the twin suns, a corroded cylinder of steel, mounted on a broken tripod. Its barrels were fused with rust, its crank handle stiff with time. Yet Ward recognized it instantly. A Gatling gun. He stepped closer, keeping his posture submissive. "Artifact of old Earth," he translated in the Empire's tongue. The overseer laughed, sharp and cruel. "So this is what your ancestors fought with? How primitive! A child's toy." Around them, Karai soldiers chuckled. Their energy rifles hummed with restrained power. Ward hid his reaction behind a neutral face, though something cold stirred in his chest. A toy, he thought. A toy that once tore empires apart. When night fell, the aliens withdrew to their fortified camp, leaving a skeleton crew to guard the relic. Ward slipped through the dark tunnels beneath the excavation site, reaching the chamber where his resistance cell waited. Ada, a wiry technician with oil-stained hands, crouched beside a jury-rig terminal. "Transmission from orbit," she whispered. "Commands tracking increased troop traffic. Something's up. They've found their excuse to purge us," Ward said quietly. He unrolled a data slate, showing the image of the unearthed weapon. "We'll use this before they use us." Ada frowned. "That? It's 2,000 years old. Even if it worked, it doesn't need to work perfectly," he interrupted. "It just needs to remind them what fear feels like." The next morning, the Imperial shuttle descended with a shriek of thrusters. From it emerged Lord General Zyler Von, towering and silver-scaled, robes trimmed with glowing circuitry. His presence silenced even the alien troops. Ward stood among the laborers as the general inspected the weapon, tail flicking in irritation. "This is the great human heritage?" Von scoffed. "A contraption that vomits lead? How poetic. You people always believed quantity could replace intellect." Ward kept his voice even. "It once defended entire continents." Von's eyes narrowed. "So did sticks and stones. Bring it to my quarters. I'll use it as a decoration." The laughter that followed burned more than the sun. Ward turned away, memorizing the path of every sentry and the location of the power stations. His mind was already calculating. That night, storms gathered in the upper atmosphere, magnetic waves crackling across the horizon. Ward watched the readings flicker across his wrist console. Plasma systems would soon be unstable. For the Empire, it was an inconvenience. For him, it was opportunity. He and Ada returned to the relic, cloaked in the storm's rising static. They pried open its mechanisms with careful precision. "Barrels still rotate," Ada murmured. "Metal's fatigued but intact. Can we feed ammunition?" She held up a handful of scavenged casings. "I can make them fit." Ward smiled faintly. "Then history has teeth again." By dawn, the sky pulsed with green lightning. Distant alarms echoed. The Empire had intercepted fragments of their encrypted messages. Von's troops began mobilizing. In the tunnels, Ward's people packed supplies in silence. Faces pale, eyes fierce. A miner named Holt asked, "Captain, what happens if they catch us?" Ward checked his sidearm. "Then we remind them why they used to fear humans." Outside, thunder rolled. The first drops of acid rain hissed against metal roofs as Von's voice boomed from the loudspeakers. "By decree of the Galactic Empire, all unregistered transmissions are acts of rebellion. Surrender immediately." No one moved. Ward's earpiece crackled with Ada's whisper. "Energy fields are fluctuating. The storm's getting worse." He looked at the Gatling gun resting on its tripod, newly cleaned, reassembled with scavenged bolts. It looked crude beside the Empire's polished machinery, but it radiated a kind of defiant power. He ran a gloved hand along the crank. Simple. Reliable. Honest. Ada swallowed. They'll laugh. Then they'll learn. The rumble of approaching engines grew louder. Through the haze, Imperial hover tanks emerged, spotlights cutting through rain. Drones circled above like steel vultures. Ward nodded once. Positions. His people melted into the shadows, hearts pounding. The first shot wasn't fired yet, but the air already tasted of war. Vaughn's command carrier stopped at the edge of the pit. He disembarked, cloak snapping in the wind, his officers behind him. Come out, humans! His amplified voice rolled across the valley. You dig up garbage, and now you think you can challenge the Empire? Ward stepped forward through the storm, coat plastered to his back, the Gatling gun beside him. Lightning flashed, painting both man and machine in blue-white light. You wanted proof of what we are, he said. You're looking at it. The alien general sneered. You dare stand against me with that relic? Not against you, Ward replied. Against your memory. For a heartbeat, silence hung between them, then a siren wailed from Vaughn's command ship. Plasma coils failed across the line, weapons flickering dead. The storm had reached its zenith. Ward's eyes caught Ada's from across the pit. She mouthed one word now. He turned the crank. The barrels began to spin, metal groaning as centuries of rust surrendered to motion. A single round chambered with a satisfying click. Vaughn's soldiers raised their rifles too late. Ward's voice cut through the thunder. History repeats. The Gatling gun roared to life. The chapter ends not with victory but with the first tremor of it, the weapon's ancient growl echoing through the storm, drowning the laughter of empires. The first volley ripped the silence apart. The Gatling gun's roar thundered across the valley, brass casings clattering like rain against stone. The aliens' laughter turned to screams as armor shattered and plasma shields dissolved into flickering blue haze. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Captain Elias Ward braced his boots against the mud, cranking the weapon with steady rhythm. Each rotation spat a storm of lead. The old barrels glowed red, smoke rising in serpentine curls. Feed it! He shouted over the noise. Ada slid another belt into the hopper. It's holding! Keep it that way! The Empire's soldiers, caught in the open, scattered for cover. Their training faltered. Nothing in their manuals prepared them for solid slugs punching through energy plating. Kinetic force was a myth to them, a relic of the pre-FTL age. They fired back blindly, but their plasma bolts fizzled in the storm. A drone swooped overhead, scanners flaring. Ward pivoted the barrels upward and squeezed the trigger. The drone disintegrated in a burst of sparks. That's for calling us primitive, he muttered. Thunder rolled again. Rain poured in sheets, hissing as it struck the hot barrels. The team's makeshift trench flooded quickly. Ward kept firing, his hands trembling from recoil. His body screamed for rest, but he refused to stop. Every pull of the crank was defiance carved into the storm. Captain? Ada yelled. They're regrouping at the ridge! Through the downpour, he saw shapes moving, heavier troopers, armored in shimmering alloy. Grav tanks rolled behind them, turbines whining. Even crippled by the storm, the Empire still had numbers. Reload! Ward barked. Ada's fingers were raw, bleeding as she jammed another belt into place. The weapon shuddered, coughed, and resumed its furious rhythm. The heavy slugs slammed into the tank's hulls. Sparks blossomed, panels dented, and one machine toppled sideways, crushed under its own weight. Holt, the miner, leaned out from cover, firing a scavenged rifle. We're actually winning! Ward's eyes stayed on the horizon. Not yet! Above the chaos, a new sound cut through the gunfire, a deep hum that made the ground tremble. A dark figure descended from the clouds, shielded by a flickering grav field. Lord General Zyler Vaughn had entered the field. The alien's voice carried through the storm, amplified by his armor. Enough! His halberd crackled with unstable energy. You dare defy the Empire with this, fossil? Ward's reply came through clenched teeth. Seems to work. Vaughn raised a clawed hand. Your storm ends here, human. The general's halberd flared, then sputtered, arcs of lightning crawling across his armor. The storm's interference tore through his systems. Ward saw the brief flicker of fear cross the alien's face before he masked it with rage. Charge! Vaughn commanded. Dozens of soldiers advanced, shouting in their guttural tongue. Ward cranked harder. The Gatling gun screamed. Bullets tore through the charging line, shredding limbs, shattering helmets. The battlefield became a maelstrom of mud, blood, and smoke. Out of ammo! Ada called. Ward slammed the crank down. Get more! I'm out! He pulled a revolver from his belt, firing at a trooper that leapt the barricade. The alien fell, twitching. Ward glanced back at the gun, its barrels warped, its gears grinding to a halt. Come on, he whispered, hammering the side of it. The mechanism jammed tight. The sound of approaching boots grew louder. Vaughn strode through the corpses, towering over them, eyes burning with fury. You've killed my men with an antique, he growled. Now I'll show you why you were conquered. Ward grabbed a wrench from his belt, ignoring the cut on his palm. Sparks flew as he pried at the jammed feed system. The barrel snapped into place with a metallic click. Vaughn lunged. The halberd swung, slicing through the rain, but its energy field flickered weakly. Ward ducked, feeling the heat scorch past his cheek. He kicked the alien's leg out from under him, slamming the wrench into the creature's helmet. Vaughn reeled back, stunned. Ward spun the crank. The gun sputtered, coughed, then screamed back to life. The first rounds tore through Vaughn's chest plate. Shards of crystalline armor scattered like shattered glass. The alien stumbled, disbelief etched into his glowing eyes. You cannot! Vaughn choked, but the next burst drowned his words. The halberd fell, its light dying in the mud. Ward stopped cranking. The silence afterward felt unnatural, broken only by the hiss of rain. His breath came in shallow gasps. The gun's barrels steamed. Around him, his people stood in stunned quiet. Ada limped forward, blood seeping through her sleeve. Is he dead? Ward looked at the motionless body. He's history. She gave a shaky laugh. So's that gun. He glanced at the relic. Smoke curled from its muzzle, its frame cracked but standing. Doesn't matter. It spoke when we needed it to. Lightning flared again, revealing the valley strewn with corpses. The Empire's line had collapsed. Even the surviving soldiers had fled into the storm, abandoning their vehicles. Ada sank to her knees, exhausted. We should go before reinforcements arrive. Ward didn't move. He stared at the weapon, rain running down his face. They'll come, and they'll bring more. But they'll remember this sound. She frowned. You mean the gun? No, he said softly. The sound of fear. A faint radio transmission crackled in his ear, Imperial command calling for a full withdrawal. The storm's magnetic field was spreading, crippling their fleet's systems. Ward exhaled slowly, the tension easing from his shoulders. We hold the valley, he said. Gather what we can. Take ammo, food, power cells, anything that still works. We'll regroup in the tunnels. Holt approached, wiping mud from his face. Captain, we actually beat them. Ward nodded once. For now. He turned to Ada, who was wrapping her wounded arm with a torn cloth. Get that patched up. You did good. She smiled faintly. You mean we survived? That's the same thing today. The storm began to thin, revealing a sky bruised with dawn. Smoke hung low, carrying the stench of scorched ozone. Ward walked to where Vaughn's body lay, the alien's expression frozen between rage and confusion. He knelt, pried open a compartment in the armor, and retrieved a small data crystal. Proof, he murmured. Ada joined him. You think the other colonies will believe this? They'll see what we did with scrap and stubbornness, Ward replied. That'll be enough. She studied him for a moment. What about the gun? He looked back at it, melted, ruined, but still upright. Leave it. Ada frowned. You're just going to abandon it? Ward's gaze hardened. Let them find it. Let them wonder how a dead world's relic broke their pride. They moved out as the sun crested the ridge, its weak light cutting through mist. Behind them, the Gatling gun stood alone among wreckage and silence, its barrels pointing skyward like a monument. Ward didn't look back. He didn't need to. The sound of iron spinning still echoed in his head, a rhythm older than the Empire itself. As they vanished into the tunnels, he whispered into his comm, broadcasting to every hidden human signal across the stars. This is Captain Elias Ward, Thermos 9. The Empire bleeds. Humanity still fights. Static swallowed the message, but he knew it would reach someone. Somewhere, others would hear that roar and remember. The storm faded, but its legacy remained, etched into scorched metal, painted across the valley floor. The relic of Earth had spoken once more, and the galaxy would never forget the language of lead. The storm had passed, but Thermos 9 no longer felt alive. Smoke curled from shattered vehicles and fractured terrain, painting the dawn in ghostly gray. Captain Elias Ward stood among the wreckage, wind tugging at his coat, eyes fixed on the silent Gatling gun. It looked like a monument to defiance, scorched, twisted, but upright. The weapon had spoken its last words, yet its echo still lingered in every heartbeat. Ada limped toward him, arm bandaged and face pale beneath soot. Scouts report no movement, she said quietly. The Empire's gone, what's left of them? They'll come back, Ward replied. Empires don't admit defeat. They bury it. She followed his gaze to the horizon, where a distant fire smoldered across the cratered fields. And when they return? He glanced at the relic. Then they'll meet history again. Behind them, survivors gathered supplies from broken transports. Children of miners, engineers, and prisoners, all of them hardened by survival. Their faces carried something new now, no longer fear, but purpose. Holt approached, his uniform torn and face streaked with grime. Captain, we salvaged rations, med packs, some ammo. One of the tanks still runs. Ward nodded. Strip it for parts. Anything that can't move becomes a trap. The group worked in silence, the sound of tools echoing across the ruins. The morning light revealed what the night had hidden. Rows of alien bodies sprawled among the rocks. The Empire's finest soldiers reduced to stillness by a relic they had mocked. Ada broke the quiet. We should transmit what happened. Let the colonies know it's possible. Ward reached into his jacket, pulling out the crystalline data chip he'd taken from Zyler Vaughn's armor. We will. This holds the battle logs. They'll see it for themselves. She hesitated. Won't that make us targets? He smiled faintly. We already are. Hours later, the resistance regrouped inside the old mining tunnels. Holographic lights flickered against stone walls as Ada connected the chip to their transmitter array. The feed came alive with distorted images, the battle replaying from the Empire's perspective. The view showed Ward's team firing the ancient gun, soldiers falling, energy shields failing, the general's death. The alien voice logs crackled with disbelief. Impossible, primitive kinetics piercing high-density fields. Retreat. I repeat, retreat. Holt whistled low. They'll lose their minds when they see this. Ward leaned forward. They'll see truth. That arrogance isn't invincible. Ada encrypted the footage and set the transmission frequency. Sending to every human relay from here to the fringe. The console hummed. A faint pulse signaled the message leaving Thermos 9, Project Thunder. Done, she said. Ward exhaled slowly. Then it begins. High above, within orbit, the dreadnought Zyler Dominion hung motionless amid debris. Inside its command chamber, alien officers gathered before a trembling hologram showing Thermos 9. The image of the Gatling gun's eruption replayed on loop. This cannot be, one officer rasped. A mechanical weapon cannot breach plasma defense. Another whispered. If humans rediscover these relics. Their superior slammed a fist on the console. Silence! The Empire does not fear scrap metal. Yet his voice quivered. Rumors would spread faster than orders. Across outposts, soldiers would whisper of the human roar, a thunder that broke energy walls and reason itself. The myth had already begun. Deep below the planet's crust, the humans prepared for exodus. The tunnels hummed with motion, engines tested, crates sealed, coordinates set for hidden colonies. Ward walked among his people, checking gear, offering brief nods. Ada approached. All convoys ready. But the gun, do we leave it behind? Yes, he said. Let it stand. Every empire needs a ghost to haunt it. She tilted her head. You're becoming poetic. Maybe, he said. But ghosts tell good stories. She handed him a small data pad. You should record one. Future resistance cells will need it. Ward stared at the blank screen, thumb hovering over the record icon. No speeches. Just truth. He began to speak. This is Captain Elias Ward, Thermos 9. The Empire's pride met Earth's memory and fell. We are still here. If you hear this, remember, tools rust, empires crumble, but willpower endures. The Gatling gun wasn't our weapon. It was a reminder of what we are capable of when we stop kneeling. He stopped the recording, sent it into the transmission queue, and turned to Ada. Now we leave. Outside, the wind had grown still. The crimson sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the battlefield gold. The Gatling gun stood silhouetted against the light, its barrels fused together. Birds, small, metallic scavengers, circled it cautiously, as if recognizing a predator. Ward climbed onto the ridge one last time, surveying the valley below. From this height, he could see the outlines of human victory written in ash and steel. They thought we were extinct, he murmured. Let them choke on the proof we're not. Ada's voice crackled through his calm. Convoy's moving. You coming? In a minute. He crouched beside the weapon, resting a hand on the cold metal. You did your part, old friend. A faint gust carried dust across the field, whispering through the empty barrels like breath through a flute. The sound was low but unmistakable, a phantom echo of the gun's roar. Ward smiled. Yeah, you're not done yet. He turned and descended toward the tunnels. Days later, in the farthest reaches of human space, the transmission reached the hidden colonies. Men and women gathered around flickering projectors, watching as the footage unfolded, the impossible sight of an ancient gun tearing through Imperial troops. Cheers erupted, followed by stunned silence. For the first time in centuries, humanity felt something larger than survival: hope. In one colony, an engineer paused the feed and zoomed in on the weapon's design. If we rebuild it, if we merge this with magnetic acceleration. Her companion finished the thought. We could make it sing again. The message spread across systems, coded under a single phrase: the roar lives. Meanwhile, back in the Empire's capital, panic disguised itself as bureaucracy. Propaganda officials released statements blaming rogue atmospheric anomalies. Commanders demanded explanations. Scientists studied fragments retrieved from Thermos 9, baffled by the sheer mechanical lethality. One advisor dared to speak before the Emperor. Perhaps, Majesty, it is not the weapon that concerns us, but the species that built it. The Emperor's expression turned cold. Then ensure the species remains buried. But fear had already seated itself, quiet, contagious, unstoppable. Weeks later, in an asteroid base hidden beyond the Empire's reach, Ward watched as technicians assembled a prototype. Sleek, metallic, and unmistakably human, a modern descendant of the Gatling gun. He rested a hand on its frame. We keep the same principle, he said. Simplicity. Speed. Relentless fire. Ada stood beside him, her arms still wrapped but healing. And a name? He considered. Project Thunder feels right. She smiled. History repeats, Captain. He looked toward the observation window where distant stars burned against blackness. Let it. That night, Ward sat alone, recording one final message. His voice was calm, deliberate. To whoever finds this, remember that power isn't in the weapon, but in the conviction to use it. The Empire will call us savages, relics, ghosts. Let them. Because ghosts don't die, they haunt. He ended the recording, sealed it with the others, and leaned back. The hum of the base's engines blended with a faint metallic rhythm from the workshop below, the new gun's motor spinning for the first time. For a moment, the sound became something else, an echo of iron and thunder, carrying across the void. Ward closed his eyes and whispered, "Empires forget. But iron remembers." Outside, the first test shot fired into the dark. The recoil trembled through the base, sharp and alive, a single heartbeat that awakened a galaxy. The roar had returned. And this time, it would not fade.